Hello beautiful people, how are you and welcome back. It's foundation time again. Now apologize for how tired I look and how just out of it I look. The weather here has been absolutely ridiculous. It is really hot. The humidity has been up to like 80 to 90%. So basically you melt into a puddle as soon as you wake up in the morning. Because even though it might be 31 degrees, it feels like 40 degrees by 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's just gross. So haven't been wearing much makeup actually for the past couple of weeks, which is why I've been a little bit quiet doing videos, but you know, back into the swing of it, back into the swing of work, so time to actually start wearing some makeup again. So the foundation that we are going to be testing this week is the Adorn Cosmetics Mineral Organic Oil-Free Liquid Foundation. Now this is it here. This is expensive. It is $69, but it is, and she's an Australian brand, Australian made. It's cruelty free and it's vegan as well. So I love supporting Australian companies because obviously I am Australian. So if the money can come back into our economy, then it's a win-win for everybody. But $69, it's getting up there. Before we start, I really liked how this arrived. So Adorn Cosmetics is all about eco-friendly, sustainable, cruelty-free, all of that jazz, and the packaging is really limited. It only came in a sachet, not a box, and it had 2 bits of things wrapped around the items that I bought, which I love. And this came like this, no box, nothing else. So if you want your instructions, you gotta go online. So this is supposed to give you a beautiful, flawless and natural long-lasting finish that looks like your own skin, suitable for normal to oily skin, which I have. It's non-greasy and is supposed to be perfect for humid and hot climates. So I thought this was a perfect fit for me. Now it says that we're supposed to apply it with their Kabuki foundation brush. I didn't buy it. I bought 2 things and it cost me $110. So I'm just going to use my Nika Kabuki brush and still use a sponge on the other side to see what happens. Now this guy here is also free from parabens, animal ingredients, petrochemicals, formaldehyde, silicon, dimethicone, sulfates, gluten, nanoparticles, talc, bismuth oxychloride, FD&C color additive, palm oil, synthetic fragrance, and ferrocyanide, which I've never heard of ever. So one of the downsides is it only comes in 7 shades. But as we've been finding with more of the cruelty-free type products, they just don't have a massive shade range. So there's something cool about the packaging that I want to talk about, but first, let's get started. So when you take off the lid, it comes in this actually quite cool, unique pump. To start with, I've just squirted 1 pump onto my brush. What have I done today? I have not put moisturizer on today because it's been so freaking hot that it basically melts off as soon as I put it on. So we're just going raw skin today, nothing else underneath. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. Oh, and the shade that I have is the color Light. I don't actually know if this is supposed to be full coverage or not. I think just from what I'm applying now, I think it's going to be a light to medium coverage, because it does say that it allows the skin to still look like skin. So that to me means that it's just going to be not a full coverage. Just realised I hadn't brought you in so you could see. But it doesn't bother me if it's not full coverage, because especially since it's been so hot, you don't want to wear a lot of makeup anyway. So apparently this is an airless pump. It's designed so that when you pump out foundation, it pushes the air up, which makes like a vacuum. So it's supposed to make this last longer and make it so that it doesn't you know, oxidize super quickly and go off, which I think is really cool. Okay, so that's the side with the kabuki brush, you know, it actually looks quite nice. You can see a bit of a difference, you know, it has evened out the skin tone and whatnot. I just want to take it a little bit more down my neck because I'm not sure if it's going to oxidize or not. So let's just make sure we're even Stevens. Alright, let's quickly do the other side. Now I'm just going to use it with a beauty sponge. This is one from Life Basics, which is cruelty free and non-allergenic. I have forgotten to damp it, so I'm just going to use it dry. Some people might be like, sacrilege, but I find with certain foundations the sponge actually works better if it's dry rather than wet. So let's see. I already feel like we're going to have to use a lot more, but it'll be interesting to see how the coverage differs. Either that is the sheerest of sheerest foundations or I need to layer it, but let me just have a quick look. I feel like I have nothing on. In the camera I definitely look more evened out and smoother, but in real life I don't know. But the sponge definitely hasn't applied as well. I would say that's because I've left the sponge dry today, particularly through here. This side's looking quite nice. I don't know. It doesn't really say. It just says, you know, that foundation that will make your skin look like your own skin. So I'm going to say it's a very light to maybe somewhat medium coverage. So far I'm not mad at it. You know, I'm not overly wowed. I am liking how light it feels. So I can already tell that with this heat, goddamn cat fur. With this heat, it's not super heavy, so it might actually stay. But I am going to powder just a little bit with my Australis Ready Set Pressed, what is this called, powder, and do a little bit of concealer, and then we will come back in the afternoon. I will try and do a check-in today, but I have a feeling I am going to forget, so I will check in this afternoon and we'll see how the first day has fared. Alrighty, so end of day one, and because it is quite a natural looking foundation, it is a little bit hard to see the difference. It's not as dramatic as what it usually is. I have had the same transfer that I always do on my chin, no surprise there, and this foundation didn't say that it was transfer proof, but you can definitely see above the mouth and on the nose that we've had some slippage, and particularly around where the concealer was under the eye. But so far, with the oiliness that goes through the middle of the face, I haven't felt like I've needed to blot throughout the day, and it hasn't felt heavy. So I feel maybe because I didn't do my normal skincare routine that I normally do, you know, I didn't really have a base or anything for it to cling to, that's why we've had that bit of slippage. So tomorrow's going to be interesting because I am outside for most of the day, so I'll really put the humidity to the test and see if it does stay and what it does. So we'll make sure we put our base down first, make sure the skin is prepped and happy, and then we shall see how it goes. So I'll check with you guys tomorrow and we'll see what my face looks like. So day two was an epic fail. It is so hot outside that everything has basically melted off my face. Within 30 minutes, I was like, this is not gonna last, this is not gonna work. Because we've been out in direct sunlight, we've been walking for a while, and Queensland weather at the moment is absolutely disgusting and gross. So let's come in and you'll see what's happened and what a disaster today has been. So you can see what little has remained has just gone really patchy and just sort of it's stuck to the skin in really weird spots. I've actually had a bit of a breakout today, and I think it's a combination of the foundation mixing in with the sweat, clogging the pores up through here. It's also just sort of gone patchy and clung to the skin, and it's just 100% failed. So rather than doing a day 3 and trialing something else, I'm going to now wear this for like a week, and I'm going to test applying it with my hands, applying it just with a sponge, you know, different weather settings, different conditions, powdering first, primer, all the rest of that. so then I can get a better idea as to what's going to work, what hasn't worked, and how it works for me. So give me a couple of days and I'll be back in a minute, and then we'll go through my final thoughts and my recommendations. Okay, so it's been a while. It's been maybe a week or two since day 1 and day 2 of trying this foundation. So I'm going to go through the different techniques, different applications that I've used for each of these. Now, I did forget to buy a primer. Oops, sorry. It's just, every time I went to put foundation, I'm like, damn it. But, oh well, next time. So most of these, well, all of them, have no primers, and majority of the applications I went without moisturizer. And that's just because it's been ridiculously hot. It's been up to 40 degrees almost every single day, and the moisturizer just doesn't set. It keeps my skin really oily and really gross. So first application was with the Kabuki brush. Now we did get a decent application. It did stay on quite nicely, but there's quite a bit of texture still around the cheeks and the chin. So you can kind of see the brush marks, basically. You can see that it was applied with a brush, and it's not super smooth. Next, with a beauty blender, I found if the sponge was damp, because the formula of this foundation is quite moussey and quite airy, a wet sponge just seemed to move the foundation and not actually put it anywhere. So the more you try to work with it, the more the sponge just took off and it wouldn't work with the skin. So a dry sponge actually worked much better. So as you can see, I did get a better, I did get it to last longer, but it wasn't an even application. There's bits missing around sort of the cheeks, and it looks a little patchy and a little bit splotchy. Next, when I used a flat foundation brush, which normally doesn't work for me at all, I did actually get probably the best application, the best coverage, and I got the foundation to last the longest with this. And purely I think that is to do with the formula of this foundation. Like I said, it is quite airy and it just moves much better with the flat foundation brush. I do have problems with my nose, as we know. So if I did powder lightly, it worked fine. You know, I did pick up a little bit of the texture on my face, but that's my skin. Longevity, I did get, you know, almost all day out of it. I have lost in the usual spots, which is around my chin, a bit on my nose, but that's because I touch my face all the time. Lastly, my ever trusty, ever faithful Real Techniques buffing brush. I've always used this before I started using beauty blenders. I've always been a foundation brush advocate rather than a sponge. So this is what I used this morning. We will come in a little bit closer so you can see what's happening to the skin. But out of everything, this brush has done the best. It's given me the best coverage. It hasn't picked up on any texture. When I powder, if I don't powder, which I didn't today, you'll see it does settle into the pores into my nose. And that's where a primer would also come in handy and help out. But let's get in a little bit closer and then we'll talk a bit more. Okay, so you can see what I mean. It's a pretty good coverage. I have lost a bit on the nose through here, and you can see a bit of texture through the nose as well. But you can tell I definitely haven't powdered as I'm very oily. Again, I lost it on my chin. And a bit of texture through the cheek. Because I didn't powder, I have had a bit of slippage, so the foundation does sort of move throughout the day. But a little bit of touch up, a little bit of blotting, and that goes away. So with this foundation, moisturizer doesn't help it as much, and that's just because it already has quite a bit of slip and quite a bit of movement. So you definitely want to go with a primer to help the foundation have something to stick to, and obviously if you want to hide some of your pores. I didn't have a primer, as I said, But I still really like the finish of it. So even then, even with it slipping a little bit and having a bit of texture, it still looks really nice up close. It is a very natural looking finish. It's a very light coverage. Maybe get it to a light medium with the buffing brush, but I think it's really good, particularly for me every day to go to work. My skin really likes it and it hasn't had any breakouts, and it's really easy to remove and the skin feels clean afterwards, which I really like. It doesn't feel cluggy and like I've got a lot of makeup on it. It does respond well to powders, but not too much powder. The more you put on, well, maybe it's just my skin, but the more I put on, the more it sort of cakes. So you've got to have a delicate hand when you are using this foundation. And in terms of how you apply it, I think my kabuki brush wasn't the right one. The bristles weren't compact enough. It wasn't a hard enough brush. So I think I would need to actually go with the Adorn kabuki brush, so their actual brush that they have for the foundation. But that's why the buffing brush works so well, because it's very tightly packed bristles and it's a very sturdy brush. But with that, it says it's supposed to be good for, you know, humidity and the heat and whatnot, but I just think here in Queensland our heat is on a whole nother level, because one day it did just completely melt off. There was nothing left on my face and I was disappointed, but it is what it is. I think I also look like I turned into a beetroot because I was so freaking hot, and I'm pretty sure I was sunburnt as well. All said and done, would I recommend this foundation? Absolutely. It is expensive. It is $69, but you do get a lot out of it. I found 2 pumps do my whole face. And it doesn't have the nasties in it. You know, it's natural ingredients, it's organic, it's really good for your skin, and it looks nice, it looks natural, and I look like me. So obviously if you like the more glam style makeup or something that's a little bit heavier, then this probably isn't your jam and not what you want to go with. But if you want something just for when you run errands or whatnot, definitely give this a go. Absolutely love it. So that's it. Hope you liked the video. If you have any questions, pop them down in the comments below. If you're new here, make sure you hit subscribe, and also make sure you hit like so I know that you like this type of video. Bye.